The early 20th century presented an economic landscape characterized by systemic exclusion and rigid financial barriers. For African Americans, and particularly African American women, the avenues to capital, equity, and asset accumulation were virtually non-existent. Yet within this hostile financial environment, a blueprint for generational wealth was forged. It was not built on inherited capital or institutional backing, but on a relentless understanding of market demand and strategic distribution. Madam C.J. Walker did not merely create a line of hair care products. She engineered a comprehensive economic engine. Born to formerly enslaved parents, her ascent from poverty to becoming one of the most successful self-made female entrepreneurs in American history is a masterclass in strategic enterprise. She recognized an underserved demographic, formulated a proprietary solution, and constructed an empire that bypassed traditional, exclusionary retail channels entirely. To understand the magnitude of her achievement, one must analyze the architecture of her business model. Walker understood that a product, no matter how effective, holds no economic power without a viable distribution network. In an era where traditional storefronts and wholesale distributors refused to carry products designed for or manufactured by African Americans, she was forced to innovate. Her solution was a decentralized, highly motivated sales force that would redefine direct selling. This was the genesis of the Walker Agents. By recruiting and training a network of thousands of African American women, Walker created a proprietary distribution channel that no competitor could easily replicate. These agents were not merely salespeople. They were independent operators within a massive interconnected economic ecosystem. They were trained in product application, aggressive marketing, and crucially, financial literacy. The direct selling model provided a dual advantage. First, it allowed the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company to retain high profit margins by eliminating the middleman. Second, it facilitated rapid organic market penetration. Agents sold directly to their communities, leveraging personal trust and localized networks. This grassroots approach to customer acquisition proved exponentially more effective than traditional advertising, creating a fiercely loyal customer base. Beyond corporate profitability, this model was an engine for economic empowerment. Walker recognized that building generational wealth required lifting the economic baseline of her entire network. By offering lucrative commission structures, she provided thousands of women with a pathway to financial independence. These women, many of whom had previously been restricted to low-wage domestic labor, were suddenly earning substantial incomes, purchasing homes, and funding their children's education. This systemic economic uplift was not an act of charity, it was a brilliant business strategy. A wealthy, empowered sales force is a motivated and loyal sales force. By aligning the financial success of her agents with the growth of her company, Walker created an unbreakable corporate culture. Her agents became fierce advocates for the brand, driving exponential revenue growth while simultaneously transforming the economic landscape of their respective communities. As the revenue poured in, Walker demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of capital allocation. She did not simply hoard cash. She reinvested heavily in vertical integration. To protect her supply chain and maximize operational efficiency, she established her own manufacturing plant in Indianapolis. This strategic relocation placed her operations at the crossroads of major American railway networks, drastically reducing shipping costs and accelerating distribution times. By owning the manufacturing process, Walker controlled product quality, safeguarded her proprietary formulas, and insulated her business from external supply shocks. This level of vertical integration is a hallmark of enduring empires. It ensures that the core mechanisms of wealth generation remain firmly within the control of the founder, rather than being outsourced to third-party vendors who could suddenly raise prices or sever contracts. With the manufacturing foundation secured, the company scaled aggressively. The network of Walker agents expanded beyond the continental United States, establishing lucrative footholds in the Caribbean and Central America. This international diversification of revenue streams protected the company from localized economic downturns and proved the universal scalability of her direct selling methodology. However, building an empire is only the first phase of wealth creation. The second phase is asset preservation and diversification. Walker understood that true generational wealth cannot be tied solely to an operating business. Businesses face market cycles, shifting consumer preferences, and eventual obsolescence. Real estate, conversely, provides a tangible, appreciating asset base that anchors wealth across generations. Walker began executing a highly strategic real estate acquisition plan. She purchased commercial properties to house her expanding operations, ensuring that the rent her company paid was essentially flowing back into her own asset column. She acquired residential properties in strategic urban centers, including Harlem, New York, recognizing the long-term appreciation potential of these rapidly developing cultural and economic hubs. The crown jewel of her real estate portfolio was Villa Luaro, an opulent estate situated in Irvington, New York. This architectural masterpiece was not merely a symbol of personal success, it was a calculated statement of economic arrival. Located in one of the wealthiest enclaves in the country, neighboring the estates of industrial titans. Villa Luaro served as a powerful marketing asset and a tangible testament to the viability of African-American entrepreneurship. The estate functioned as a corporate retreat, a venue for high-level strategic meetings, and a physical manifestation of the wealth that her direct selling model could generate. It inspired her agents and signaled to the broader financial establishment that her empire was a permanent, formidable force. Furthermore, the property represented a highly illiquid, enduring asset that would retain substantial value long after its initial purchase. Madam C.J. Walker's approach to wealth extended far beyond personal accumulation. She viewed capital as a tool for systemic engineering. She understood that a thriving business requires a thriving consumer base, and she strategically deployed philanthropic capital to strengthen the communities that supported her enterprise. She funded educational institutions, civil rights organizations, and community centers, effectively building an impenetrable moat of goodwill and brand loyalty. This strategic philanthropy served a dual purpose. It addressed the pressing social inequities of the early 20th century, and it solidified the Madam C.J. Walker brand as an indispensable pillar of the African-American community. When consumers purchased her products, they were not merely buying hair care. They were investing in an economic ecosystem that visibly and tangibly reinvested in their own prosperity. The integration of economic empowerment into the core business model is perhaps Walker's most enduring legacy. She established a union for her agents, organizing them into a formalized collective. This union held annual conventions, which functioned as massive corporate training events. Agents were educated in advanced sales techniques, business management, and most importantly, personal financial planning. Walker explicitly instructed her agents on how to manage their newfound capital. She advocated for the purchase of real estate, the establishment of savings accounts, and the avoidance of predatory debt. By institutionalizing financial literacy within her sales force, she ensured that the wealth generated by her company would not be squandered, but rather deployed strategically to build localized, generational wealth across the nation. This focus on financial education transformed the Walker Network into a powerful economic engine. The agents became community leaders, utilizing their capital to fund other local businesses, support educational initiatives, and advocate for political enfranchisement. The wealth generated by a single hair care formula was thus multiplied and distributed, creating a cascading effect of economic empowerment that fundamentally altered the trajectory of thousands of families. Analyzing the structural mechanics of Walker's enterprise reveals a masterclass in risk mitigation. By operating in a highly specialized, underserved niche, she faced virtually no direct competition from the established corporate giants of her era. They ignored the African-American consumer market, leaving a massive, lucrative vacuum that Walker aggressively filled and subsequently dominated. Her reliance on direct selling further insulated the company from macroeconomic shock. During periods of economic contraction, traditional retail supply chains often freeze, but the decentralized network of Walker agents remained agile and responsive. Because the agents' livelihoods depended on their sales, they possessed an intrinsic motivation to adapt their strategies and maintain revenue flows, regardless of broader market conditions. The transfer of this empire to the next generation required meticulous legal and financial structuring. Walker utilized trusts, corporate boards, and detailed testamentary instructions to ensure that her assets would be managed according to her strategic vision long after her passing. She mandated that the presidency of her company must always be held by a woman, legally cementing her commitment to female economic empowerment into the corporate charter. Furthermore, she directed a significant portion of her estate toward ongoing philanthropic endeavors, ensuring that her legacy of community investment would continue in perpetuity. By legally structuring the distribution of her assets, she protected her wealth from internal disputes and external predation, establishing a robust framework for generational continuity. The blueprint left by Madam C.J. Walker remains profoundly relevant for modern wealth builders. It demonstrates that massive capital accumulation does not require an entirely novel invention. It requires the identification of an ignored market and the flawless execution of a proprietary distribution strategy. It proves that Aligning corporate profitability with the economic empowerment of a workforce creates an unstoppable commercial force. For the ambitious entrepreneur, the lessons are clear. First, control the supply chain. Vertical integration protects margins and guarantees operational autonomy. Second, bypass traditional gatekeepers. If established distribution networks are closed, build your own. Direct selling, whether through in-person networks or modern digital channels, provides unparalleled access to the consumer and invaluable data on purchasing behavior. Third, diversify cash flow into hard assets. Operating businesses are volatile. Real estate provides enduring stability and collateral for future leverage. Finally, recognize that true generational wealth is not built in isolation. It is built by creating value that extends beyond the corporate balance sheet, by empowering a network of stakeholders, and by strategically deploying capital to engineer a legacy that outlasts the founder. Madam C.J. Walker did not just sell a product, she architected an empire, proving that strategic vision coupled with relentless execution can shatter systemic barriers and forge a permanent economic dynasty.